This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday stream. The stream I do on Sundays because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. Hope you're all doing well this morning, this beautiful Sunday morning. Probably overheated where you are, just like where I am, but hey, we're all in this together, right? We'll be talking about places with warmer climes than here even momentarily, but first, before I get to that, apparently, yesterday was Noah Asensio's birthday. So that being the case, and that I haven't done this in a while, Noah Asensio, if you're listening, if you're out there, this one's for you. And a 1. And a 2. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Noah. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Noah. Hope you had a good one. Hope you're having a good weekend elsewise. But who else is here joining me on this beautiful Sunday morning? Matt Barnes, Dax Orion, Jaeger Pony, Evil One, Mike Savage, Keeverdam, and who else is here? TFAO Prescription, Jen T. Maxey, Jamie Melquist, Ebony Williams, who else is here? Resolute Germ, Jack Frost, 7548. Good morning, good morning, good morning. And also, thank you, Keeverdam, for the GoFundMe links. If you guys will direct your attention to the top of the chat box over the course of the stream to the GoFundMe links at the top there for our friend Shady Grin, Angry Illinoisian, and his kitten. They, their friends, and family could certainly use your help if you have a couple of bucks to spare. But, all that being said, I thought I'd do something a little different today. I have a stream tomorrow. So programming note, Monday, August 1st, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, will be a special edition of TED Excellence, because Monday evening was the evening that Inhuman Form had free to do a TED Excellence with me. And it's a TED Excellence recommended to me, I should say, by Tall Person. It features a speaker who is now a member of the Young Turks, going to tell us something about how to fix the U.S. economy or something. And inside joke, Inhuman Form himself is a young Turk. So it'll be kind of this weird Turkception episode. It's also possible, can't promise because, you know, energy levels and scheduling and everything, but it is possible that I may be able to also wrangle Ranting Monkey, say that 10 times fast, into the show tomorrow night as well. So who knows, it might be a 2-way, might be a 3-way. Either way, it'll be TED Excellence. Monday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. But with that being said, I thought I'd do something different today because rather than do another video watch/commentary, I've been seeing a lot of news stories lately about the U.S.-Mexico border. And for those of you that are veterans of Lords of the Night, you will know that at every opportunity that I had over the course of the news day to see what was going on with the border situation, I took it because personal reasons and just, you know, overall personal concern. But because of the lack of me focusing on the news every night for a couple of, well, almost a year now, plus, I haven't been keeping up with what's been going on at the border. So I thought, what the heck, let's do a cavalcade of article reads to all catch us up on recent events at the border between the U.S. and Mexico. So I have gathered up a series of articles in chronological order from around the beginning of July up until just around the end of July to see all what's going on in that part of the world, just for my edification and perhaps yours. So here we go. By the way, I had to do some tweaking with my sound again. I don't know if I'm having that whole, like my gain jumps up and you hear the background noise and it sounds like I'm standing on an aircraft carrier. If I'll catch up with my words today. If it does, let me know. I don't know if I can do anything about it live, but at least I'll have a note to try to address it after the show. So there you go. Who else is here before I start? For the win, Nil. Johnny Blaze. And who else? Tall Person. Brittany Holland. And I think... Oh, Jeanette E. Hellis. Burgid. So good morning to you all. So let's find out what's going on in the border. The background music isn't too loud, is it? Let me check real quick. Actually, that's not loud at all. You can barely hear it. I'm going to turn that up just a smidge. There we go. That's a little better. I had my headphones off because who needs headphones when you're doing an article read? But hey, what the heck. All right, so this comes from July 7th. And this is all AP News. I made sure to get a... I don't know. Is AP a neutral news source anymore? Do they have a political slant? I don't know. I always think of the AP as relatively neutral zone, but what do I know? Texas governor authorizes state to return migrants to border. Okay. Austin, Texas. Texas Governor Greg Abbott on Thursday. Remember, this is back on July 7th, so I'm working forward in time here. On Thursday, authorized state forces to apprehend migrants and return them to the U.S.-Mexico border, pushing the boundaries of their enforcement powers and the Republicans' escalating efforts to curb the rising number of crossings. The federal government is responsible for enforcement of immigration. Yeah, this is very true. This is something that a lot of the critics of our border policies seem to forget. The White House criticized the move, and one immigrant rights group called for swift intervention from the Justice Department. Okay, state rights, federal rights. Yeah, okay. For more than a year, Texas has patrolled the border with an increasingly heavy hand. Abbott stopped short Wednesday of authorizing Texas troopers and National Guard members, who he has already deployed to the border by the thousands, to take migrants across the ports of entry and into Mexico, disappointing former Trump administration officials who have urged him to do so. Well, if the federal government isn't going to do anything, what is the state supposed to do? Just sit there and let the problem get worse? I guess would be the argument. The impact of the order was unclear, including how widely it would be used and under what circumstances. But the authority described by Abbott would amount to a significant and untested expansion of the normal powers of the National Guard and state police, who until now have turned migrants over to Border Patrol agents and in some cases made arrests on state trespassing charges. Among the questions the move raises is the training state forces have to detain and transport migrants. The training, okay. Legal experts expected the move to invite court challenges. Well, when the federal government and state government stop working hand in hand when it comes to border enforcement, something's got to give, right? Crossings are at or near the highest in about 2 decades. On the Texas border, U.S. authorities stopped migrants from crossing illegally 523,000 times between January and May. I'm going to say that again. 523,000 times. Over 500,000 times in 5 months. Up from 417,000 over the same span a year ago. Good gravy. Abbott has blamed the Biden administration and spent more than $3 billion in state funds on a massive border security apparatus. But the state operation has not stemmed the flow of migrants. Yeah. I can't imagine why the numbers have jumped so much in the last couple of years. I think I can imagine, but they might get into that. Quote, as the challenges on the border continue to increase, Texas will continue to take action to address those challenges caused by the Biden administration, Abbott said. They certainly aren't helping matters. The White House responded by criticizing the results of Abbott's massive border mission known as Operation Lone Star, very original, including a week in April when additional commercial truck inspections gridlocked Texas's 1,200-mile border with Mexico for a week. Yeah, the White House criticized inspecting trucks along the Texas border, you say. We'll get to that in a minute, because I haven't read these articles, by the way. I know the headlines more or less, but I haven't read them. Quote, Governor Abbott's record on immigration doesn't give us confidence in what he has cooked up now, spokesman Abdullah Hassan said. Mexico's Foreign Relations Department said in a statement it, quote, rejects Abbott's move, saying immigration policy was a federal, not state matter, and that the decision was purely a political gambit. Quote, this action can only be understood as part of the Texas state electoral campaigns, the department said. Okay, so Abbott's only making moves to drum up political points, and the federal government is criticizing Abbott for taking action when the numbers just continue to increase year over year by ridiculous percentages. Okay, Lawrence Benenson of the National Immigration Forum said he expects legal challenges to Texas trying to set its own immigration enforcement policy, which conflicts with long-standing legal precedents that is the responsibility of the federal government. Maybe mean like, and that, anyway. He also said it's unclear how Texas troopers would pick up people solely for being out of legal status and not having committed a crime. Okay, admittedly, I'm not a lawyer. I'm going to read that again because he also said it's unclear how Texas troopers would pick up people solely for being out of legal status and not having committed a crime. Well, presumably, well, I guess the question is, how are they going to scan people without just stopping everybody? I guess without a checkpoint Charlie kind of thing. Okay, maybe that's what he means. Attempts to broaden state powers in enforcing immigration policy have failed in the past, including Arizona's Papers, Please law that the Supreme Court struck down in 2012 when Justice Anthony Kennedy wrote that, quote, the state may not pursue policies that undermine federal law, unquote. Well, can the federal government pursue policies that undermine border security against state sovereignty? I guess that's my question, because Texas does have a right to defend its own border, right? I mean, that's a mutual interest about the state and the federal government. So if one's policies are detrimental. Let's try detrimental to the state's security. I don't know. Interesting legal question. The Supreme Court recently struck down a Republican-led Texas and Missouri lawsuit to prevent the Biden administration from ending a Trump-era policy that forced asylum seekers to wait in Mexico while their request is considered. That ruling, Benenson said, affirmed the federal government's role in enforcing immigration law. Quote, there is a recognition that we don't want to open the floodgates to having states set 50 different immigration enforcement policies, unquote, Benenson said. Well, sure, I suppose so, but if the federal government is asleep at the switch on enforcing the policies that should be there, or if the numbers keep going up without any changes, Texas is just supposed to sit back and take it? Abbott announced the order in a statement, and his office did not immediately respond to questions about how it would be implemented. The announcement comes 2 days after former Trump administration officials and sheriffs in several South Texas. What? The announcement comes 2 days after former Trump administration officials and sheriffs in several South Texas counties, maybe? AP, this article's been up since July 7th. Nobody's done any proofing? Okay. Called on Abbott to declare what they have called an invasion and use extraordinary powers normally reserved for war. Their plan involves a novel interpretation of the U.S. Constitution and have the National Guard or state police forcibly send migrants to Mexico without regard to immigration laws and law enforcement procedures. Okay, well that's... Yeah, now we're getting into kind of Looney Tunes territory of conflict legally. The idea has existed on the right fringes of the GOP for years, but has gained traction among conservatives since Biden took office. If it's not constitutional, then no. Let's see. The Center for Renewing America. That doesn't sound sinister. A conservative policy think tank led by former Trump administration officials has been driving the effort and criticized Abbott's order since it does not call for expelling migrants. Quote, that is critical. Otherwise, this is still catch and release, the group said in a statement. U.S. border authorities are stopping migrants more often on the southern border than at any time in the last 2 decades. Migrants were stopped nearly 240,000 times in May, up by 1/3 from a year ago. Up by 1/3. Comparisons to pre-pandemic levels are complicated because migrants expelled under a public health authority known as Title 42 face no legal consequences, encouraging repeat attempts. Authorities say 25% of encounters in May were with people who had been stopped at least once in the previous year. Yeah, it's not going to stop. It really isn't. Unless there's legal consequence. Can you see that now? The advocacy group RACES? Is that it? RAICES, which apparently you won't tell us what it means, which provides legal services to immigrant families and refugees, called Abbott's move an overreach of power and urged the Biden administration to step in. I wonder if that's the same... one of my third of my 3 true crime videos, the criminal in that story, he was defended by an organization that came in to save him from the death penalty after he'd been convicted of a couple of murders. I wonder if that's the same organization or a similar one, because he was a Mexican citizen. Thank you, Matt Barnes. 27 watching and 11 likes. Do scribe a solid and hit the like button. Yes, please, hit the like button. I appreciate it if you did. And also, not just for me, but any particular creator you like, if you like their stuff, I know that I do, and I know that they will really appreciate it if you share their stuff. And especially if you tag them on a Twitter post or something about something you like. They like that. It doesn't happen as often as you might think. You know, it's kind of odd. Liking a video is great. Leaving a comment is wonderful. But sharing is caring. And I think a lot of creators appreciate it. I know that I've shared videos for creators that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and I'll just put a tag in there that says "Great new video by whoever I'm talking about, Rycon Roleplays or Kira TV or whoever," and they'll like it back or they'll say thanks. And it's really neat. So yeah, do that too. Thank you, Matt Barnes. Okay, so the struggle between the federal government and state autonomy. Texas is right on the border. Obviously, the problem with continuing waves of illegal immigration isn't stopping, and the federal government isn't seemingly doing anything to stem the tide. So what is Texas to do? Well, obviously, Abbott is pushing the limits of his own authority as a governor of a state and also testing the Constitution. It's not a unjustified concern. The one part in there that got me, though, was the Biden administration criticizing inspections of trucks coming across the border. Because if not in the next story, then in the oncoming stories, there'll be something about that. Let's see. What's next? So that was July 7th of this year. Moving forward to July 12th. Mexico agrees to invest $1.5 billion in smart border technology. Okay. Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador agreed to spend $1.5 billion over the next 2 years to improve smart border technology during meetings Tuesday with President Joe Biden, a move the White House says shows neighborly cooperation succeeding where Trump administration vows to wall off the border and have Mexico pay for it could not. Wait a second. Mexico's spending $1.5 billion, and you're countering that with what Trump said about Mexico paying for a border wall. As though... What? Okay. A series of disagreements the two countries hammered out as their... a series of disagreements. A series of agreements the two countries hammered out as their leaders spoke called for several other concrete moves, like a wall, including expanding the number of work visas the U.S. issues, creating a bilateral working group on labor migration pathways and worker protections, and welcoming more refugees. Both also pledged to continue joint patrols for Mexico and Guatemala to hunt human smugglers along their shared border. But the Biden administration hailed securing border funding from Mexico after years of failed attempts by former President Donald Trump. Wait. So you're celebrating getting Mexico to pay for border security, Anybody else see kind of a disconnect in rhetoric there? Quote, borders that are more resilient, more efficient, and safer will enhance our shared commerce, Biden and Lopez Obrador said in a joint official statement. Quote, we are committed like never before to completing a multi-year joint U.S.-Mexico border infrastructure modernization effort for projects along the 2,000-mile border, unquote. Okay, well, I maybe it'll say in one of these other articles, I don't know how much we pay on a yearly basis for border security or what we've paid so far for improving our smart border technology. I'm not even sure what the smart technology is in that statement. They didn't really say anything in this article about it. But, yeah, Mexico paying for border security between us and them. They're hailing this. Celebrating it. Okay. I mean, whatever floats your boat, I suppose. All right, so that happened. That was July 12th. Onward to July 19th. So this happened in Mexico, but I think it relates. 3 migrants dead, 12 injured in Mexico crash. 3 migrants and 2 Mexican citizens are dead, and a dozen migrants are recovering from injuries following a highway accident in northern Mexico, the country's National Immigration Institute said Tuesday. The 3 dead migrants included a girl from Honduras. The nationalities of the other 2 remained unclear. The van the migrants were riding crashed in... The van the migrants were riding crashed in the northern border state of Nuevo León. It is not clear if the dead Mexicans included the driver of the vehicle. The injured included people from Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Nicaragua. The institute said they would be given humanitarian visas and the bodies of those deceased would be returned to their home countries. Okay. The northern border state. I wonder where they were headed, all crammed into that van. Victims of crashes involving migrant smuggling are generally considered crime victims in Mexico and thus are eligible for such visas. Victims of smuggling. I mean, it's kind of a weird area, isn't it? You're willingly going along to break the law, but then you're also a victim at the same time of the people who you agreed to be smuggled by. I guess it depends on the situation, especially if you're talking about minors, and if they're talking about a young Honduran girl who died. I wonder how many children were involved in this. Okay, immigrants smuggling has become increasingly risky in Mexico, with dozens of migrants often found stuffed into freight trucks or buses. Yeah, but the Biden administration doesn't want anybody slowing down commerce to check those trucks. You know. On Tuesday, authorities said angry residents of a town on Mexico's southern border seized 3 Mexican immigrant agents to demand the National Guard and soldiers combat rampant migrant smuggling operations. Residents say the migrant smugglers frequently attack, rob, or threaten them. So even on Mexico's border, they have a problem with this stuff. What's Mexico doing about it? I don't know. Okay, so a van stuffed with people... 3 dead, 12 injured, all from different parts of South America, coming north in a van. Okay, that was on July 19th. Let's move on to a day later on July 20th. 2 indicted in migrant death trailer case that left 53 dead. Remember those trucks and trailers that the Biden administration was criticizing Texas for taking time and inspecting? Yeah, we don't want to waste time with that. Anyway, let me take a moment off here to talk to you guys for a second. Spud gun, scribe blight, then it's down to the parents, not the fault of the receiving country to sort out, need to be returned to the point of origin. Well, this is the issue. If it's a child and they're not accompanied by anybody, you don't know. Were they kidnapped? Have they been, are they being trafficked? You don't know. The parents might not have had any say in it. They might have been, forced to give up their kid. Who knows? This is the thing. Each one of those cases is its own thing and has to be investigated. That's the problem with unaccompanied minors coming up to the border. and our responsibility on a humanitarian level of having to deal with underage kids that just, have either been abandoned by their parents or their parents are trying to take advantage of, just basic humanity to have the U.S. government take kids in. And this happened in Mexico. So you don't know. This is the terrible thing of it. This is the terrible thing of it, is that you can't make assumptions on some of these cases, especially when it comes down to kids. And that's the horror of it. Let's see. Keeverdam, sympathy for the kids, no sympathy for the adults. Well, like I say, it all depends. Adults can be victims too, without their consent or otherwise. The people responsible for the smuggling, no sympathy at all. Everybody else, case by case basis. There was a few years ago a now infamous photo of a father and his, I think, what was it, 3 or 4 year old daughter, and they're washed up on the banks of the Rio Grande because the man, his wife, and their 2 kids decided to try to cross the Rio Grande to get into the U.S. illegally, and the father had his little daughter on his shoulders and tried to walk across, and they both got pulled under by the current, and they both drowned and died. In that situation, no, I have no sympathy for the adults in that situation who would put their children, knowingly and intentionally put their children at risk like that. But in another circumstance, who knows? That's the problem. Let's see. Evil One, they've been shipping them to those cities, and now they have mayors who are screaming they can't handle it, but I guess the border states can. Yeah, it's a mess. It's a complete mess. The whole thing's a mess. Everybody, anyway, I could go on, but let's get on with the articles. 2 men were indicted Wednesday. Remember, this is on July 20th. Wednesday, in the case of a hot, airless tractor-trailer rig found last month with 53 dead or dying migrants in San Antonio, officials said. A federal grand jury in San Antonio indicted Homero Zamorano Jr., 46, and Cristian Martinez, 28, both of Pasadena, Texas, on counts of transporting and conspiring to transport migrants illegally, resulting in death, and transporting and conspiring to transport migrants illegally, resulting in serious injury. It's very, very specific. Both remain in federal custody without bond pending trial. Martinez's attorney, David Shearer of San Antonio, declined to comment on the indictments. A message to Zamorano's attorney was not immediately returned. Conviction on the death counts could result in life sentences. They should result in life sentences. But the Attorney General's office could authorize prosecutors to seek death penalties. The serious bodily injury counts carry sentences of up to 20 years in prison. It was the deadliest tragedy to claim the lives of migrants smuggled across the border from Mexico. Since the last one. Tell us about the one previous to that. What was it, like the Walmart parking lot or something? The truck had been packed with 67 people, and the dead included 27 from Mexico, 14 from Honduras, 7 from Guatemala, and 2 from El Salvador, said Francisco Garduno, chief of Mexico's National Immigration Institute. The incident happened on a remote San Antonio back road on June 27th. Arriving police officers detained Zamorano after spotting him hiding in some nearby brush, according to a statement from the U.S. Attorney's Office. A search of Zamorano's cell phone revealed calls with Martinez concerning the smuggling run. Surveillance video of the 18-wheeler passing through a Border Patrol checkpoint showed the driver matched Zamorano's description, according to the indictment. Passing through a Border Patrol checkpoint, you say? One survivor of the journey, a 20-year-old from Guatemala, told the Associated Press that smugglers had covered the trailer's floor with what she believes was powdered chicken bouillon, apparently to throw off any dogs at the checkpoint. Okay. Well, it obviously worked because none of them were discovered. 67 people packed into a tractor trailer crossing a border checkpoint, and nobody suspected a thing. Great. The tragedy occurred at a time when huge numbers of migrants had been coming to the U.S., many of them taking perilous risks across swift rivers and canals and scorching desert landscapes. occurred at a time. It's not like this just suddenly happened. This has been going on nonstop for years. And we'll never know the death toll for however many people have died crossing the desert and have just not been found or accounted for, or drowned and didn't come up again. Yeah, migrants were stopped nearly 240,000 times in May, up by 1/3 from a year ago. Well, they kept that statistic going. Of the 73 people in the truck, I thought you said it was 67. Wait a second, what? Did I miss something here? Huh. The truck had been packed with 67 people. Right here. The truck had been packed with 67 people. Of the 73 people in the truck, you've got 6 people you're not accounting for there. Okay. Those who died included people from the Mexican states of things I can't pronounce exactly because I'm a dumb gringo, so I'm just going to skip it. Migrants from Honduras and Guatemala also were among those who died in the deadliest known smuggling attempt in the United States. In 2017, 10 people died after being trapped inside a truck parked at a San Antonio Walmart. It was only 10? I thought it was more than that. Well, I guess thankfully it wasn't more than that. In 2003, the bodies of 19 migrants were found in a sweltering truck southeast of the city. Okay, well, Now, there's a story from, I think it was last February, where a 911 call came in saying that there was a whole bunch of people trapped inside of a tanker truck, like an actual gas tanker truck kind of thing, abandoned somewhere, and so on. I've tried following up on that story several times. I even tried contacting, I believe it was the San Antonio Sheriff's Office, to see if there was ever any follow-up. Because the thing was at the time, was okay, was the call a hoax? Is there some tanker trailer sitting out on some road somewhere filled with a bunch of dead bodies? The story at the time said they'd taken one person into custody involved in the call, but as far as I know, I've never heard anything else about that story again. So I'm hoping it was a hoax, right? But who knows? Okay, well, moving on from that. If anybody out there actually has any more information on that, it was a 911. It was I believe it was last February of 2021, I think. If I'm off on that, I apologize. On to July 25th. So just 5 days after that story. New group of 2,000 migrants sets off in southern Mexico. Yes, we have a caravan. Another caravan. A new group of about 2,000 migrants set out walking Monday in southern Mexico with the goal of reaching the United States. Walking from southern Mexico to the U.S. border. The group started out from the city of Tapachula, near the border with Guatemala. Yeah, we're talking way down south, where thousands of migrants have been stranded and frustrated by slow paperwork at overcrowded Mexican immigration offices. Okay, so you're already waiting to go through the official channels, but now, rather than do that, you're just going to start walking? Okay. Quote, "It is tough, but we'll keep on going in hopes they'll let us through," unquote, said Nicaraguan migrant Moises, I don't know how to say that name, I'm sorry, Chinchilla, who like most hopes to get a temporary residence permit. A temporary residence permit. What are the odds? Out of everybody else who's packed at the border right now, 2,000 people, well, I hope they'll let us through. That's what you're banking on. Hope. Recent marches, made up mostly of entire families, have managed to advance only about 45 kilometers, or 28 miles, to the town of Huitla? I don't know how to pronounce that, where Mexican officials have succeeded in dispersing the groups by giving out the permits. You succeeded in dispersing the groups by giving out the permits. why is there any incentive to follow the rules if you can just like march to a particular town like, okay, here, fine, you can live here? Oh my gosh. The permits allow the migrants, mostly Venezuelans and Central Americans, to stay on Mexican territory for up to 30 days while they pursue immigration procedures. Well, why couldn't they do that back at the border? And what happens after those 30 days? Do you round them up and send them back? While many migrants try to use the permits to give them time to reach the U.S. border, many are sent back to the south by Mexican officials. Stay on Mexican territory. So basically, I'm given a permit for 30 days to try to make my way north. Many object to the Mexican strategy of keeping them in the south, away from the U.S. border. They say the process of normalizing their status, usually through applying for asylum, takes too long, and they can't provide for themselves while waiting weeks in Tapachula because jobs are scarce. Yeah, it's almost like the whole idea is just completely screwed up, isn't it? Oh, boy. You want to talk about systemic failure? We hear that phrase a lot. Systemic failure. Thank you, Keldrig. Moises Chinchilla. Sounds like a fake name in a parody movie. I'm sorry, I have trouble believing that's a real person. It might not be. You know, talking to anybody in authority who's going to be reporting on stuff, it might not be. I thought it... I don't know how common a last name Chinchilla is. I don't know. But... it could be. I've heard weirder real names before. I'm sure you have too. So, not impossible. Let's see. Big time. Come on, Scribe. It's AP News. They won't have the entire story. Hey, like I say, well, my intention with going with AP was, well, first and foremost, here's the funny part. I went to Google in preparing for this stream to look up, recent stories on the border. And so I just went to Google and I put in, border crisis or, U.S.-Mexico border, and then clicked the news tab, and then just sorted that by, what's been published in the last week or so, just to start off with. And I kept looking for mainstream news sources, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, on and on. Nothing. There was nothing. I spotted one post by the Washington Post. Everything else was by some conservative blog here or some tiny news outlet I've never heard of before there. And then I just look at the AP and there's stories coming out the wazoo over the course of July. But yeah, I was kind of surprised. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised. Who wants to talk about the border in mainstream news, right? So yeah, I came to the AP because they had the most consistent history in the last month of stories, and they're not so overtly partisan as, say, Fox News or CNN is. Now, for completeness, for details and everything else, well, catch as catch can, I suppose. But anyway, and you're surprised, really? I mean, here's the thing. There's always stories posted on CNN and MSNBC and such that aren't like front page headline stuff, but are still filed and published. Stories that are sort of below the fold or down in the lower part of their webpage or something. And so, yeah, no, honestly, I was surprised that there wasn't more from more mainstream sources just over the course of a month's time, even with everything else going on. So a little bit surprised, yeah. Thank you, Keeverdam. For a country that's supposedly racist, people sure are desperate to come here. I know, right? Well, I mean, it's mostly economic forces than anything else. But yeah, it's terrible here. It's so terrible here. Everybody wants to come. Yeah. All right, well, moving on from that. By the way, guys, I don't have like a whole ton of stories. I got like 3 left. This is just going to be like a laid-back stream. Nothing too major. So probably a relatively short broadcast today, but I'll get some stuff in. I'll take some questions from you guys. Chill out, hang out a bit, find out what's going on in the world or close to home. Let's see. So that was July 25th. We're now on to July 27th. And you'd almost think I was repeating a story from just a few minutes ago, but no, it's a different one. Sunderland Park, New Mexico. 2 dead, 10 injured in SUV rollover near U.S.-Mexico border. 12 people in a SUV rollover. I mean, I guess an SUV can be anything, but I wonder what it is. 2 people died and 10 were injured Wednesday when the SUV they were in rolled over in a southwestern southwestern New Mexico. I can't speak today. Let me try that again. Rolled over in southeastern New Mexico, about 8 miles from the U.S.-Mexico border, officials said. A 13th person also was in the Chevrolet Tahoe. A Chevy Tahoe. I'm going to look up a Chevy Tahoe real quick. I just have to have in my mind like what that looks like. Chevy Tahoe. 12 people. I'm looking at a picture of a Chevy Tahoe right now, like a 2021 Chevy Tahoe. And I'm trying to imagine 13 people inside that thing. Is that what they said? All right. So 13 people packed into a Chevy Tahoe. Anybody here that owns a Chevy Tahoe, you tell me. What does that sound like? Does that sound like a comfortable fit? A 13th person also was in the Chevy Tahoe, but it was unclear whether that person was injured, said Sunland Park Fire Chief Daniel Medrano. His agency responded to the crash, which occurred around 5:45 a.m., about 13 miles, 21 kilometers northwest of El Paso, Texas. New Mexico State Police confirmed the 2 fatalities, but did not respond to repeated requests for comment on whether law enforcement officers were pursuing the SUV when the rollover happened. Well, that's interesting. Medrano said 2 of the people who were hurt suffered critical injuries and that all of the injured were taken to hospitals. Well, I would hope so. Federal officials in a statement said U.S. Border Patrol agents provided assistance at the crash scene, but declined to specify what type of help or whether agents were involved in a pursuit. I'm guessing they were involved in a pursuit. I'm guessing that this SUV was spotted or identified, Border Patrol took chase, and these guys tried to avoid and ended up rolling themselves over. That's my guess, because that would be a chain of events that has happened many, many times. I recall at least 3 or 4 different stories in the latter year or two of Lords of the Night. I read similar things having happened. The Mexican consulate in El Paso said in a statement that 9 of the injured people were Mexican and that it is providing assistance to them. While authorities did not identify the people in the SUV as immigrants, I'm guessing maybe some of them were. The stretch of border in southeastern New Mexico where the crash happened is among the spots where migrants regularly are smuggled across from Mexico in SUVs. Nearly a month ago, in the nearby New Mexico community of Santa Teresa, 15 immigrants were found crammed inside an SUV after a caller told the Border Patrol that the vehicle was picking up people on a state highway. Last year, the driver of an SUV packed with smuggled migrants was struck by tractor trailer. Struck by a tractor trailer, maybe? But anyway, struck by tractor trailer shortly after driving through a hole in the border fence about 125 miles east of San Diego. The crash killed 13 of 25 people crammed into the SUV that was built to hold a maximum of 8. All the dead were from Mexico and Guatemala. 25 people in an SUV built for 8. And the Biden administration was criticizing Texas for conducting inspections of trailers and such coming across the border. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Oh, we got... Thank you for zapping that bot. I appreciate killing the bot. It was a thought bot. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Resolute Germ. AP will talk about it, but they censor a lot of the critical information. Entirely possible. I mean, you know, after reading the news for so long and doing TEDx's, spotting the negative space in a story or a piece of information almost becomes like a game. You know, more questions are brought up than are answered in some of these stories, but let's see. Asia Research Directorate. Boy, where's my brain right now? Tahoe only have 7 seatbelts, if I recall. Yeah, so these suckers are built basically to 7 or 8 people, and there were 13 crammed in that one we're talking about in the story here. 25? Is that what is the end there? It said 13, 25 people crammed in the SUV. 25 people. I can just imagine that the weight imbalance on a car like that going at speed, making some sharp turn if the Border Patrol's coming after them. And the Border Patrol guys, they probably have no idea how many people are in the car, right? They have no idea. So one of those things packed with people takes a sharp turn. Obviously, it rolls over. You hear about SUV rollovers packed with immigrants so often because those things aren't built to make sharp turns with that much weight in them. It just, oh boy. Anyway, so that was. Let's see, what day was that? That was on the 27th, just a few days ago. All right, well, we're getting down to the end of the month. So what happened most recently, just within the last couple of days? July 28th. U.S. to fill border wall gaps at open area near Yuma, Arizona. Oh, so is Biden going to build that wall? Huh. The Biden administration on Thursday authorized completion of the Trump-funded U.S.-Mexico border wall in an open area of southern Arizona near Yuma that has become one of the busiest corridors for illegal crossings. Huh. There's a gap in the wall, and it's one of the busiest corridors. Biden had pledged during his campaign to cease all future wall construction, but the administration later agreed to some barriers, citing safety. The Department of Homeland Security said Thursday, the work to close 4 wide gaps in the wall near Yuma will better protect migrants who can slip down a slope or drown walking through a low section of the Colorado River. I did a, this was a while back now, but I did a story where the walls were being criticized by immigration advocates because of the injuries people were experiencing when climbing over them. Like, people would try to climb over the wall and they would fall and break their legs or their spines or even die just trying to get over the walls because the walls were too tall or so difficult to climb. It's not going to stop anybody. Anybody who's gone to all the effort to get to the border from wherever they're coming from, they're not going to stop. I mean, the wall certainly is a better deterrent than not having one at all. But your excuse is it's a safety concern. A safety concern. You know how many people are dying to get here that never even reach the border? What was your big strategy when sending Kamala Harris down to, what was it? Was it Guatemala? And she made that big speech a couple of years ago where she just said, "Do not come here." That was your big deterrent? The agency said in a statement that Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas authorized completion of the project near the Morelos Dam, reflecting the administration's, quote, priority to deploy modern, effective border measures and also improving safety and security along the southwest border. Modern. Boy, you know, the cutting-edge technology of a wall. That's some modern efforts and measures there. It was initially to be funded by the Defense Department, but will now be paid for out of Homeland Security's 2021 budget. Oh, Homeland Security is paying for the wall. That seems to make sense. I'm not being facetious there. That actually makes sense. But okay. The Border Patrol Yuma sector has quickly emerged as the third busiest of 9 sectors along the border, with much of the traffic funneling through the Morelos Dam. Gosh, the place where there's a hole in the wall has the most traffic? I mean, what are the odds? Migrants alive in the... alive... Okay, either I am slowly losing my ability to read, which is entirely possible, or, as usual, My eyes are superseding my cognitive function. Migrants arrive in the small town of Algodones, and walk unencumbered across a concrete ledge on the dam to U.S. soil, where they wait for Border Patrol agents to take them into custody. Completion of the wall was at the top of former President Donald Trump's agenda. I think the problem is I read too fast. That's my problem. That's always been my problem. Was at the top of former President Donald Trump's agenda, and border security remains a potent issue for candidates of both parties going into this year's primary elections. President Joe Biden halted new wall construction after he took office, but he has since made closing the gaps just south of Yuma a priority. I wonder when he decided to do that. Was that when the numbers of people coming through those gaps just went through the absolute roof in the last year? Can you imagine that? A wall in the border wall. A wall. I got to stop talking, apparently. A gap in a border wall. Let people in, and it's now a priority. Only after you... Oh, my God. Common sense, you know. Democratic U.S. Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, who is seeking his party nominations... His party nominations? Don't you mean his party's nomination? What? Okay, I'll confess. Part of this is me stumbling over my own reading of this, but part of it is just the copy editing here. Seeking his party nominations next week to defend the seat in November, has pressed the Biden administration to close the gaps, calling them a challenge for officials trying to secure the border. Yeah, you think? Imagine what it was before there was any walls there at all. Well, we don't have to imagine. We can look at the numbers, and somehow they're still going up. Agents stopped migrants from more than 160,000 times from January through June in the Yuma sector. So out of the 523,000 combined from January to May, 160,000 times from January to June in just that sector. Nearly quadruple from the same period last year. The only other sectors with more traffic were Del Rio and Rio Grande Valley in South Texas. Huh. Okay, so there was a gap in the wall. Okay, all right. The area has been especially attractive to Colombians, Venezuelans, and others who have flown to Mexicali, Mexico, and taken a short bus or taxi ride to Algodones to walk across the border before being released into the United States. But Arizona environmentalist Miles Trapagan, who has been mapping ecological damage left by border wall construction under the Trump administration, said that closing the gaps won't be much of a deterrent. Well, okay, what do you suggest otherwise? Trapagan said the Yuma area has, quote, become the new Ellis Island for Arizona, with people arriving there from countries as disparate as Ethiopia, Cuba, Russia, Ukraine, India, Colombia, and Nicaragua. Cuba, Russia, Ukraine, India. Okay, Ethiopia, what percentage of people coming across the border are Ukrainian, are Russian, are Indian? At that point in the border. I mean, if you have one person from Russia amongst everybody, then yes, with people arriving there from countries as disparate, well, do you have percentages? How much of a problem are Russian illegal immigrants at the Yuma sector? And what does that have to do with it? So, quote, people have traveled halfway around the globe on planes, trains, and automobiles, he said. Uh-huh. What about boats? No boats? Quote, so to expect that closing 4 small gaps is going to make them turn around and book a return flight on Air Ethiopia is sheer fallacy, unquote. Okay, well, he's not wrong there. Okay, here's the thing. As my dad often told me, a locked door only keeps out an honest man. All right? There are forces at work that a wall won't stop. And people will continue to try to get across the border no matter what. We've known that for years. It isn't a solution. It is a deterrent. Is it a 100% effective deterrent? No. right? But the other problem is, what are the incentives to take that risk? What is the rhetoric coming out of the people in charge, or the attitude taken by the people in charge, that are giving people outside of the country the motivation and the inspiration to take that risk? I mean, we got a push-pull mechanic here, right? We have the push of the originating countries with their ridiculously terrible economies, their horribly corrupt governments. And then we have the pull of several states in this country and the federal government to a great degree at present, who have sanctuary cities or sanctuary states where as long as you show up, the state is going to defy the federal government. You know? Defy federal law. So yeah, well, California is being all humanitarian, all right, by letting everybody in and not helping the federal authorities enforce immigration law. But then Texas are the bad guys when they're trying to compensate for what the federal government won't do in enforcing immigration law. You see how this works? This is bizarre sort of back and forth. A 5-year-old migrant girl crossing the water in a group drowned near the dam June 6th when she became separated from her mother. The child's body was later found in the river. U.S. officials didn't release the girl's identity or nationality, but Jamaican newspapers have said she was believed to be from that country. Where's the mother? Is the mother going to be brought up on child endangerment charges at the least? That's one of those situations where someone should be charged with manslaughter. You know, willfully and intentionally taking a small child into a rushing river. U.S. officials didn't... it was unclear when construction would begin. The statement said officials will move, quote, as expeditiously as possible while still maintaining environmental stewardship by consulting affected parties. How big is the gap? Did they say? I mean, most of the wall has already been built, right? It's a gap. It wasn't like 4 miles long or something, was it? An open area. Close 4 wide gaps. What constitutes wide? How? I don't know if they ever say. Okay. Advocates in San Diego say the Border Patrol there told them of plans to erect 2 30-foot high bollard-style barriers through the border's iconic Friendship Park. Like the Yuma project, the additional construction was funded during Trump's administration, but not completed before his presidency ended. The new barriers will replace shorter walls and severely impede cross-border views, including to San Diego's skyline from Tijuana, said the Reverend John Fainstill of Friends of Friendship Park, a group that advocates for public access to the binational park inaugurated in 1971 by then First Lady Pat Nixon. It's a security problem. I don't know what to tell you. With a gap in the wall, you have 5-year-olds drowning. Okay? This isn't like putting up the wall. Yeah, it's not going to stop people from trying, but if it'll make some lady think twice before taking her 5-year-old across the river, I think it's a bet worth taking. Environmentalists like Traphagen, meanwhile, have called for removal of other sections of barrier they say hurt local wildlife like bobcats, mountain lions, javelinas? What's a javelina? I don't know what a javelina is. And mule deer. The Tucson-based Wildlands Network this week released a new report on sites along the U.S.-Mexico border that it considers in the greatest need of environmental restoration. Traphagen, the group's Borderlands program coordinator, traveled the international boundary across New Mexico, Arizona, and California this and last year to identify damaged wildlife corridors and other environmental harm. The group calls for native foliage to be replanted in areas that were stripped bare during wall construction and widening spaces between steel borders now just 4 inches apart to allow more wildlife to pass through. I don't know if you understand what the purpose of a wall is. We need to put larger holes in the wall. You know, this wall that's meant to keep out people from going across the border illegally. We need to make the holes, the span in between, wider, you see. It also calls for the removal of 180 miles of razor wire that were installed along pedestrian bollard fencing in all border states in 2019 and 2020, both as an eyesore and a danger to the public and wild animals. Danger to the public? Are the public climbing over the fences on a regular basis? Okay. You can't save all the animals. Okay? This is all just a roundabout way of saying take the walls down or make the walls completely ineffective. Like, yeah, I don't think Mr. Environmentalist is going to get his way on this one. I'd be more interested in the AP covering the fact that Biden had to go back against his own declaration. That they're not sort of saying that, well, I mean, certainly a wall is not a solution 100%, but if the place where there's a gap is one of the largest problems along the border, maybe there's a correlation? I don't know. All right, and this is the last story I have. It's a bittersweet story, right? In that it's good news, but it's still emblematic of the problem. This is from July 28th. Mexico City. Authorities in Mexico said Thursday that at least 94 migrants had to bash their way out of a suffocating freight trailer abandoned on a highway in the steamy Gulf Coast state of Veracruz. Carlos Enrique Escalante, the head of the state migrant attention office, said migrants had to break holes in the freight container to get out, some apparently through the roof. Some were injured when they leapt from the roof of the trailer, but their injuries did not include any broken bones and were not considered life-threatening. Well, thank goodness for that. Real quick, thank you, Kiever Dam. A javelina is a pig-like animal. Oh, okay. Well, learn something new every day. Is that bot still here? All right, can I ban this person? Report remove. Okay. Well, if you guys have, I assume you guys have already reported them. Let's see. Unwanted commercial content or spam. There we go. Or what else? Actually, that's promoting. Yeah, let's click that one there. There we go. Okay. I don't know if you guys can report them. I don't know if that's a power only I possess, but I did it anyway. Let's see. Escalante said local residents near the town of Acayucan, I'm probably screwing that up too, heard the noise and helped open the freight container. A much larger number of migrants were believed to have been aboard and fled after escaping. At least 94. But the 94 migrants from Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador were turned over to immigration authorities. The discovery of the trailer Wednesday recalled the tragedy in San Antonio, Texas on June 27th, when 53 migrants died because they had been left in a sweltering freight truck. In the southern Mexico state of Chiapas, which borders Guatemala, yet another group of migrants continued demanding temporary visas. They would permit them. I think you mean that would permit them to travel across Mexico. They were still in the town of Hiolta on Thursday after leaving Tapachula earlier this week, saying they can't wait months for slow immigration paperwork in Tapachula. So there's a combo of previous stories. The 2,000 marchers, or walkers. But yeah, just left on the side of the road. You know, probably about 100 people stuffed into a tractor trailer, just left on the side of the road to suffocate and die. I mean, thank goodness they were able to escape. Whatever their situations, so on, I'd rather they all lived than to find out there's nearly 100 people probably including children, just left to die on a roadside. But here's the thing, it's not stopping. It's not stopping, it's not going to stop. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not claim to have a solution to this problem. I don't. And the problems of other countries driving people out in desperation, economically or otherwise, aren't things that, we can wave a magic wand and fix, or at least not believe that we can. But there's a lot of entities, governments, officials, etc. in this country, in the U.S. They're certainly not helping matters by, several things, both policies and rhetoric. Policies like sanctuary cities or opposing the federal government's attempts to enforce immigration law. Most especially during the Trump administration, when the Trump administration was trying to force immigration law fairly strictly, and they were getting pushback from cities and states across this country, unwilling to work with immigration officials because, ICE were a bunch of, a concentration camp minders or something with their fences and their cages and all that. Never mind that all kind of thing started under Obama, but we don't talk about that. Right? And of course, all the cages have disappeared since then. And the Biden administration with their improved philosophy on immigration have cured everything, except the numbers have gone up higher than anything we've seen in recent history. And there's also the rhetoric. And I talked about this, I couldn't count how many times over the course of Lawton and other stories where you have legal immigrants being conflated with illegal aliens by just calling everybody immigrants. And then saying, oh, that person's anti-immigration. All right? As though that's somebody who's just an inherent xenophobe all around. When 9 times out of 10, it's somebody who's like, no, I'm not against immigration, I'm against illegal immigration. The difference between somebody who follows the law and follows the rules and someone who doesn't. But the mainstream news sources love to conflate these two things together as though they're the same, and then call anybody who has a problem with what's going on at the border anti-immigrant. Yeah. Well, I'm not quite sure what I expected. I mean, I saw the headlines before I read the stories, but all the extra details therein. Not surprised by. Actually, I should say I am surprised. The number of illegal crossings and encounters. 500,000 in 5 months. An increase of 100,000 from the year prior. And then, like I say, there's all the things we never hear about. I've talked about before how I have a family member who... their work situation's changed now. They're in a different department. But at one time, they were part of border security. And not having any direct contact with someone who worked in that realm, I asked him, what really goes on at the border? What is, from the things that come out in the news, I know that that's only the highest level of information we get. How bad is it? And the horror stories I was told about child trafficking, children being left at the border alone, or being brought to the border by someone and then the authorities having to separate them because they can't verify that the person with them is actually their parent. And if they are their parent, just for the child, how traumatic that has to be. And if they aren't their parent, well, they've been kidnapped from somewhere else, and now it's the U.S.'s responsibility to try to take care of that kid until they can figure it out. And each one of those instances is its own case that needs its own investigation, because you got a child's life at stake there. And like I said before, there's no accounting for how many people have died trying to get to the border, because they think, and sometimes they're not wrong, that if they can just make it over that line, they'll have a better life than they did in the country they were coming from. And so they'll drag their young children along, but they'll die in the desert, or they'll be abandoned in a truck, or they'll get into a crash running away from the Border Patrol, or who knows what. And what's been our response in the last couple of years? Well, apparently, let's not check tractor trailers. Let's diss Texas for trying to make sure that there weren't like tractor trailers stuffed with people coming across the border, and send the vice president off to another country and just tell people don't come. As though that's, I don't know, feels like a joke. At the same time, it's not like everything was all hunky-dory under Trump or something, right? Because there's always this push and pull, depending on who's in charge. And somehow, between that push and pull, nothing seems to get solved. I wish I had a solution. I'd probably get a Nobel Peace Prize or something. Legitimately, even. But anyway, I'll take a couple minutes here to talk to you guys and see what you have to say on the subjects. And then we'll move on. For the Win Now, Scribelight, a great channel that covers the other side of the border, including the situation in Tapachula, is Oscar L. Blue. He is a great on-the-ground reporter. Oscar L. Blue. Okay. I'll see if I can look him up in the near future. What else? Oh, StreamYard is telling me I'm having connection issues. Am I roboting or anything, guys? I can't tell, so let me know. If it's only just happening, then near the end of the show is the best time for it, I suppose. Let's see. Resolute Germ. If not that, you could always annex the Western Hemisphere, take the nation to them. Yeah, now you're all part of it, part of the wonderful expanse of us all. Yeah, that'd be great. Evil One. If crossing the border is not that big a deal and only a misdemeanor, then I can speed, key your car, break windows out of your house, bust your car windows out. They're not that big of a deal, right? Yeah, well, the lackadaisical way in which our laws are enforced or sentences imposed, right? You've got guys who've committed multiple sexual assault getting, 6 months in jail, and then some guy who, I don't even know, like, was at the January 6th thing getting 5 years in prison or something. That I'm not quoting anything. That's just a sort of a sidewise example. I saw something in the paper not too long ago that there was one of the protesters in Canada got some ridiculous sentence, and then at the same time some other guy that I think was either a serial rapist or a murderer or something got some kind of lenient sentence. Of course, that's Canada, but of course it happens here as well. No audio problem, Scribe. Okay, and has there been any of that, background wind static noise going up at any point either? Let me know. And Renovation, and now the Mexicans are complaining that U.S. citizens from California are heading to Mexico for lower rents. All of a sudden, it's no longer acceptable to cross the border en masse. Yeah, I saw that somewhere, too. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of migration taking place now that people can work remotely. They'll cross the border for a lower rent place to stay since inflation is jumping up over here. Sister Scribe and I were talking about this at one point. We're both apartment renters, and for a couple of years we've been sort of musing about the possibility of not together, but just independently of each other, finding our own house or a condo or something, right? And we're trying to look for some place that we could conceivably afford. And it's all in places that you wouldn't want to live. It's just like, or in temperatures. I mean, I have a problem with the heat as it is. Nothing against New Mexico or Arizona, where I found, like, there's a house I could afford, but I'd have to basically live in the house with the AC on all the time, because I wouldn't want to go outside and be walking on the sun, smash mouth or otherwise. Mike Savage, voice was fine and clear. There's a slight background noise, but not enough to distract. Okay. Yeah, I've got all these competing forces between the software I use to process the audio and StreamYard always seeming to turn on its automatic microphone adjustment stuff. I don't get how so many other shows just seem to turn on a microphone and everything's clear, and I don't know what they're doing different than me, but I keep having that problem, and it irritates the heck out of me, as you know. And let's see. Gen T Maxi, anything you might have is already being drowned out by the shit I'm already running. Don't worry about it, Scribe. I know, but I want to sound, at least passingly professional. Passingly professional. And speaking of passingly professional, And now, a programming note. Tomorrow, Monday, August 1st, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, a special edition of TED Excellence featuring featuring in human form. Let's say Formy. Formy will be joining me for, let me get the title right here because I don't want to get it wrong, A New Direction for the U.S. Economy, featuring speaker Jessica Burbank, who is now of the Young Turks. And she's going to tell us how to fix the U.S. economy. Now, admittedly, the talk is from a couple of years ago, so it'll be outside the realm of the current inflation crisis. But all the same, we'll find out tomorrow. Formy knows more about economics than I do. I don't think he's actually an economist. In fact, I'm pretty sure he's not officially. But he knows more about economics than I do. And since I know nothing about economics and will probably screw everything up. What is with this bot? It's back again. Is it just like... Okay, I'm reporting it again. Goodbye. YouTube, get rid of this thing. I've seen this on other channels, too. I've seen the same name, the same title. Go away. So yes, tomorrow night. And again, it's possible, not guaranteed, but possible, I might be able to lasso in Ranting Monkey to join us as well. So it might be a 3-person TEDx, which I don't think has happened before. Might be. Can't promise, might be. But either way, it will be me in inhuman form tomorrow night. And thank you, Tall Person, for the recommendation of the TEDx. And then, of course, next Thursday at the regular time, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, will be the usual episode of TED Excellence, of which I don't know what I'll do yet. I'll find out then. But either way, everybody. Even though this was decidedly downbeat and depressing because news from the border is rarely uplifting, at least that last story was one of survival and not another massive slaughter. I thank you all for joining me for this little diversion for your Sunday morning. News! Sunday morning news. Thank you, Kiefer David, again. I've been banning the bots. They all seem to have the same name, and yes, anyone can report them. Okay, well, those of you out there who are moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do until the bots show up, and then you spring into action, fighting them bots. Appreciated. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the GoFundMe's pinned to the top of the chat box, thank you so much for your generosity. Really do appreciate it. With that, everybody, I hope you all have a good rest of your Sunday. Hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I hope to see you tomorrow night. Take care. Bye-bye.